Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show, our first non-live front office show in a few weeks. We've been doing all free agency, breaking news stuff. Now we're actually getting to get back and record a show. Keith, is that a sign of the times of where we're at now in the NBA calendar? Has free agency, I don't want to say ground to a halt, but slowed down significantly at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're now into the point where most of the teams with cap space are done. There's a couple left with cap space. We'll get into them in a couple minutes here. Free agent lists are drying up pretty quick. There's still a handful of pretty good players out there, and now teams are probably going to get decent bargains on those guys. But now we kind of turn to trades, and even the trade market is a little quiet at the moment. There's a handful of guys out there, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, things went very, very quickly this year for the top end guys, and then teams like kind of filled out very quickly on the back end of their rosters too. So there's just these guys now that are good players that are just kind of stuck waiting for this. But yeah, and it does feel weird. My eyes keep glancing to the side because I'm looking for like the chat comments, and I'm like, oh, no one's watching, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we're recording. So yeah, it's something. So it feels weird after a couple weeks of doing nothing but live shows.
We'll still do some live Q&A sessions and things like that, of course, and we still have front office Fridays and all of that. So plenty more live to come, but just it is weird getting back into the recording groove here. All right, let's get to, in fact, let's just jump right into that. Cap space around the NBA has dried up, but there are a couple of teams that still have some room left, right?
Yeah, so we're down to, and this is factoring in like the signings that have been reported. We're really down to the Utah Jazz and the Detroit Pistons with cap space left. The Pistons have somewhere between like 21 and 26, pending how they handle Simone Fontecchio. My guess is what they're eventually going to do when they're ready is they may renounce his rights and then say, we're going to sign him with the room exception. Or they may hang on to him if they decide to use the room exception on somebody else. So somewhere in that 21 to 26 million range. And then the Jazz have about 37.7 million that they can still use. But we're getting closer into the time of, all right, how are they going to do that? Now, they can't renegotiate and extend Markkanen until August 6th. So that's still a ways away. From that, that's not even a real true deadline unless it was like, we need to do this so we can make him trade eligible on trade deadline day. That could be a deciding factor on how quickly that comes together. So call that a very loose deadline. Like that is not hard and fast. Like they must do it on that day, but we'll call that a loose deadline. And then of course, I think they're open to doing all sorts of things until we get up to that point. There's been rumors of Walker Kessler, maybe John Collins is available, maybe Markkanen himself is definitely somebody who could still be traded. So lots of flexibility to still come in Utah, but that's it. San Antonio had some space. They used it to sign Chris Paul. They're going to use the rest to acquire Harrison Barnes. Charlotte's like comically under the cap by a tiny amount. They're going to eat that up when they re-sign Miles Bridges. So that's kind of it. We're done with cap space.
Well, and that Markkanen situation will be interesting to watch because do you rush him to sign the extension and say, hey, this way we can trade you? We'll have a one-day window to trade you, or how does that all play out? In worst case, if they extend him and they do it after, let's say they do it August 8th or whatever, they just won't be able to trade him until next summer, which, I mean, he's a great player. It's not the end of the world for the Utah Jazz. But there are still some players out there. Let's take a look at what the market currently looks like. Remember, this is organized not by the quality of the player. This is not a ranking in that regard. This is just looking at what the player made last season. That's how this is organized. So these are the players that are still out there on the market currently. Keith, there's some good names there. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised that like Gary Trent Jr., Tyus Jones, that these guys are still sitting out there. And as you already mentioned, this is the part of the year where the teams that still have a little bit of spending power might get some bargains because now the money has started to dry up and these guys are going to have to take deals that probably aren't quite what they were ideally hoping for when they came into the summer.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, so if you look at like Gary Trent Jr., he's played for above the mid-level the last couple of years. I assume he was thinking, all right, worst comes to worst, I get a mid-level deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he is also slightly different in that he's considerably younger than just about everybody who's on this first page of the available players because he's only 25. So this is a guy who not that there's like a ton of growth potential left, but should be able to fit in as a 3-and-D wing for a lot of teams. So I'm very curious to see what happens with him. But I even think like Kyle Lowry, I think at this point we could probably pencil him back to the Sixers on a minimum.
Yeah.
But like Gordon Hayward, I know it ended really poorly for him with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But Gordon Hayward can still play. Like he can still shoot. He can still handle the ball, still pass. So, but you're talking at this point, maybe part of an MLE, but more likely a minimum deal for him. Did no sign and trade coming because the Thunder had to renounce his rights. So he's just kind of out there floating in the wind right now. And that's going to be all it is unless, I kind of don't think I could see him going back to Utah. That'd be a little weird if it went full circle that way. Celtics fans have been hammering, like, sign him for the minimum to fill the 15th spot. I think the team would rather just leave it open. Yeah. I don't think that's the direction they want to go. Markelle Fultz is an interesting guy. People have been asking me a lot about him. Why is he out in Orlando? Well, one, they signed KCP. They don't even have room for Anthony Black right now to play in that backcourt because they have KCP and Suggs, we assume, as the starters. Then Cole Anthony and Gary Harris as the two backup guards.
Yeah.
There's no room to get Anthony Black, so there's really no room for Fultz. And he's not an easy fit in a lot of places because he's a truly an on-ball only point guard. So maybe if somebody's looking at in another couple of days and like, all right, we need a bench scorer, we need somebody who can come in and push pace a little bit, maybe get us some buckets. Maybe then they go that way. For my money, the two best guys on this list are right next to each other: Tyus Jones and Luke Kennard. Tyus Jones, kind of crazy that he's still out there. I wonder if maybe just going back to Washington is in his best interest. And then Luke Kennard, he's the best shooter of this group by a pretty wide margin. So I would assume maybe somebody wants him. The problem for Memphis is starting to run a little tight on roster spots.
Yeah, and that's something that we're seeing with a few teams around the league. Luke Kennard, certainly these are guys, Luke Kennard, Tyus Jones, Trent Jr., Fultz. I mean, these guys are going to get picked up. They're going to be added to rosters at some point. The question is, what kind of a discount are they going to have to take right now? And who knows if Tyus Jones decides to just return to Washington, maybe he gets a little bit more than if he goes somewhere else. So there's potential there. But I mean, look, there's still some interesting players out there on the market. We did have one guy just come off the market about an hour before we started recording, and that's Daniel Theis. And you know what? Daniel Theis on a veteran minimum to the Pelicans, I would typically just say, yeah, of course. Of course he's on a veteran minimum. That makes sense. And I wouldn't, be sounding the horn for whatever team got him for a minimum. It would just be like, yeah, he's a minimum player. This is what happens. But looking at the center market and how it's gone, this is actually something of a departure because we've seen guys who are typically minimum players that play the center position that have gotten more than the minimum so far this summer. So I think the Pelicans actually getting Theis on a minimum. It is helpful for them. I don't think he's their solution as the starter. They are losing. They lost Jonas Valanciunas to the Wizards, but they needed a big. They needed to find somebody to come in and fill that role. And I think Daniel Theis, you could do worse than him, and especially if you're getting him on a minimum salary compared to what other guys that are kind of in his range have been getting. Yeah,
absolutely. I think he's a good fit next to Zion because he can space the floor. So I'm with you. I would not want to go into the year with Daniel Theis as my starting center, as my night-to-night plan. That's not where I would want to be, not at this point in his career. But if you brought in Daniel Theis, the idea is, well, he can start if we need him to, but we could play him 15, 20 minutes a night off the bench. That's a great get for the minimum. Last year, it felt like he kind of went out of our collective conscience for a little bit there because in 22-23 he only played in 7 games with Indiana. He dealt with knee injury and then came back and just they didn't need him to play. But last year, after getting bought out by the Pacers, played in 59 games for the Clippers, 17 minutes a night, shot 54% from the field and 37% on threes. In that 37% on threes, that's a little higher, but in range with where he's been at various points in his career. So, and he still blocks about a shot per game in that kind of short amount of minutes. So, good rim protection spacing guy for the minimum. This is a great get for the Pelicans. And you're absolutely right, though. Got to figure out what we're going to do at the starting center spot, because that's not really the way you can go. But they're another team. They could get in on like the John Collins market or the Walker Kessler market. I mean, everybody should be calling about Walker Kessler. The contract's so small. We're now, at least I sound like a broken record on that, like where anybody could trade for him. But like John Collins, like if you could work out something like I don't know if it needs to be a 3-team, or if the Jazz were just like, you know what, we'll get off of John Collins' extra year of money. We'll trade you him in a deal where we get back Brandon Ingram for 1 year. Maybe that could be something that works out for Utah. I don't know that that's where they'll go, but that could be a way they kind of structure things, and without harming their long-term salary flexibility at all, or really even changing anything if they want to trade Markkanen or not, because that would just be almost a cap neutral deal for them this year. And then that could be a way New Orleans starts to fill out the front court depth a little bit, because they certainly, even with Tice, they need more in the fold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Brandon Ingram, because as much as we talk about things are starting to wind down with free agency, there's still stuff out there that hasn't been resolved. Like, we're not expecting to see Brandon Ingram start the season with the Pelicans. He's a pretty big name. Now it takes a very specific buyer on Brandon Ingram, because he's got the contract situation where essentially if you're going to bring him in, if you're going to surrender significant assets to get him, you probably are going to want to keep him long-term, which means you have to be willing to pay him on his next contract. But he's just one of the guys that's still out there. You mentioned John Collins, another guy who could still be out there on the trade market. I still think Portland has a move or maybe two left to probably do. You know,
or
there's
3 or 4.
Yeah, 3, 4, however many you want. They've got veterans that really they need to move.
You get a Blazer. You get a Blazer. You get a Blazer.
That's where the camera cuts to OJ Simpson.
Right? Oh man.
No. Oh no. I went back to 1994. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry.
Oh man, we're old.
Oh yeah. That wasn't even a Blazer. It was a Bronco.
Yeah, it was a Bronco.
It was a Bronco. Yes. Oh, look at that.
But
see, I'm messing up my car references.
It's all good.
Oh,
didn't the Bronco become the Blazer?
Maybe
is that what happened? Didn't they? I'm not a car guy, so somebody could correct this in the comments. But wasn't it like we can't still sell the Bronco because now it has like this tarnished name? Didn't they turn it into the Chevy Blazer? Or maybe they already had the Blazer. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know.
I think that
I would have to look it up.
Yeah, that's let's move on.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. All right. Let's get to, look, we talked about things that are still out there. Russell Westbrook, question mark.
Yeah.
I mean, he's supposed to not be coming back to the Clippers. It was like a week ago that we were talking about how he's probably going to get traded to the Denver Nuggets. Yet here we are. Westbrook is still a Clipper. What's going on? It's not like it's a big salary. We're talking about $4 million here.
Yeah, my guess is this was probably partially the Clippers lining their stuff up, because we've heard Chris Dunn is going to the Clippers. We've heard it's going to be via sign and trade, which is fine. The Clippers are already going to be hard capped anyway from using the non-taxpayer MLE. They'll be able to get Chris Dunn in. Then they probably would like to do that via something with Russell Westbrook. But then it becomes, where does Westbrook go? One of the original thought processes was, well, Westbrook will go into the non-taxpayer exception for the Nuggets, but the Nuggets are using that to sign Dario Saric. So now the Nuggets are going to have to trade something out in that trade. Now they can get there. It's $4 million. It's relatively easy to match salary on. But yeah, I don't. It's going to be, something we'll be watching now to see, all right, what is Denver doing here? If they really do want Russell Westbrook, maybe that's not what's happening. Maybe he is going to go somewhere else instead. Maybe he goes back to the Jazz again, and then they buy him out again, and then maybe he joins Denver on a minimum. I don't know, because it's just, weird situation with that one. But who knows? But yeah, that's one of the several we heard about it, and now it's just kind of sitting out there unresolved on how that's going to come together in the end.
Yeah, I mean, just one of those big picture point. There's still moves to be made. There's still stuff coming in the NBA, even though, again, free agency is winding down. There's trades out there that, for one reason or another, haven't happened yet, but are still on the way. So, and it may be as simple as GMs need to meet up in Vegas, maybe have a few drinks, and next thing you know, deals are getting done. So it could be as simple as that, which is coming up later this week. But deals are still out there. Of course, we will be on top of all of it, breaking it all down. So that's my quick pitch here. Subscribe to the channel if you're not a channel subscriber yet. And then over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, make sure you follow the show there as well. In fact, do both things. Subscribe on YouTube, and then follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Also, Bryce has been doing some great breakdowns.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Bryce has been doing great breakdowns over on Basketball Bulletin on all the trades and things that have been going down, providing his scouting notes. So check out the Basketball Bulletin as well, basketballbulletin.substack.com. Check that one out, and I'll put the link in the description down below. Some cool stuff going out over there as well.
Yeah, on the Basketball Bulletin, I've got a piece that I'm writing right now that'll come out. It's some of my favorite fits this summer, not necessarily cap wise or any of that stuff, but fits on the court that I really like that I think are going to be really good. Not fits those were cool shorts and a nice button down or anything like that. That's you guys see how I dress on here every show. So it's pretty simple. It's basketball shorts and a pullover for me. I was going to say over on Apple and Spotify and the podcast, we're at least here in Florida, we're only a month from school starting up again. So good time to subscribe there. Cause if you're going to be in the car driving and all that, good way to make sure you don't miss the shows there. If you're back to, carting the kids around and all those kind of things in the car. I know I will be in roughly a month. So also if we could get a few more ratings and reviews over on Apple, that would be huge. Helps people find the show over there for people who aren't viewers of YouTube. But yeah, subscribe everywhere you can find it. Just go search, sign up for new services, subscribe there. It's great. Then you're really helping us out with all this stuff.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to Team USA. We've got some injury updates. They're already we were so worried about injuries, and we're already dealing with this stuff. But Kevin Durant, calf strain. He's missed the first couple of days of Team USA practices in Las Vegas. Hopefully this is nothing too serious. Obviously, they still have a little while till they start really playing Olympic Games, but we're going to have some scrimmages and things like that coming up. So we'll see how things look with Kevin Durant. But I mean, not what you want to hear. There are a number of older players on this roster. Of course, LeBron James is the oldest player in the NBA, but there's a lot of guys that are north of 30 on this roster. The last thing you want is injuries starting to pop up, but especially this early in the process for injuries already. So hopefully KD just takes a few days off and then he's good. But something to keep an eye on here as we inch closer to Olympic basketball.
Yeah, he seemed in very good spirits from the clips I saw. Doesn't seem to think this is going to be a big thing. Won't hold him out for the summer at all. But one of the things that we know is teams are always keeping a very watchful eye on these things, because if they get any sense of hey, this could screw a guy up into the season, they're out. They'll pull the guy and take him out of there. So Kevin Durant was one of them. The other one is Kawhi Leonard. Is in a similar place. Coming in, there was thoughts of maybe he might even be replaced. But he came in and he said his knee's doing well. Said he's feeling pretty good after taking the time off, after being forced to wrap his season early while they were in their playoff series. And now he's back. So it sounds like he is feeling in a place where I'm good to go. With Kawhi, I think we all kind of know that is really just a moment-to-moment thing with him. And I would assume if he gets through camp healthy and is feeling good, he'll go to Paris. And then if he's not, well, guess what? Then Team USA will be down a player and they'll just have to sort it out, because it's very difficult once you're already in place to replace guys. And there is a deadline for when you can move guys on and off the roster too. I don't remember exactly when it is, but I know it's coming up here fairly soon. But we're less than 3 weeks out from the first game in the Olympics. For Team USA. Their group finished out, just for people who are interested. It'll be United States and Serbia and South Sudan. Those were already in. and now Puerto Rico joins that group as well. So that is the Group C of the Olympics. So U.S. starts everything on the 28th on a Sunday at, I think it's 11:15 a.m. Eastern time with a game against Serbia. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Keith, what do you make of Anthony Edwards? And I'm paraphrasing, but his comments that he's still the alpha on this team, despite the team having names like Steph Curry, like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid. I mean, on and on and on. I mean, the best of the best are here. And here's Anthony Edwards saying, I'm still the alpha on this team. How do you take that?
I mean, I love his confidence, right? I absolutely love that that's where he sees himself. And honestly, he's not far off that. If we're really talking about where he is as a player, I think he's knocking on the door of being in that realm. Now, I think some of the veterans are going to enjoy here over the next few weeks leading up to the Olympics in his place on occasion and making sure they remind him of, exactly what his status is with the team. I thought the whole thing of just as an aside of maybe LeBron comes off the bench for Team USA. What a laughably funny story that was. Like, there's no chance that's going to happen. Like, there, of course he starts. So I think it's, I think with Anthony Edwards is funny. Did you also see where he was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm not doing the World Cup anymore. Like, I forget exactly how he phrased it, but he's like, oh, the thing we did last summer. Yeah, no, but the Olympics. Yeah, that's cool. I'll do that.
So he's risen above the World Cup is what he's saying.
Yeah, at least in his own mind.
All right.
In his own mind, right?
What they say. I mean, he's fantastic. I don't have a problem with him having that kind of confidence. Yeah. I just don't. This isn't 92 Jordan saying I'm the guy now to Magic and Bird. Yeah. Like, I get people want to draw those parallels. I don't know if I can get there quite yet. There's a lot of really good guys on this roster. Maybe at some point Anthony Edwards does get there. I just think maybe we're a year or two too early here for him to really make that ascent, and we'll see. You said LeBron should start.
Yeah.
Who's your starting five?
My four locks, assuming everybody's healthy, are Embiid, Durant, LeBron, and Steph. So, and then
I'm with you.
I'd probably Ant maybe. I think I'm all right with him if they want to start him, just to give him just one more guy out there in the starting group. This sounds weird and people be like Celtics homer. I wouldn't mind it if Drew Holiday started, just to give a ball mover and a defender out there. Just like, it's one guy doesn't need the ball, so yeah, it could be him. And then if you're Steve Kerr, you're like, hey, I kind of went with the elder statesman at each position a little bit that way. Kind of that's where we go. But that would be the way I would look at it. And then you're probably going to alternate on like who doesn't really play, very much as you kind of go through all of it towards the way this all gets put together.
The crazy thing is that Drew Holiday, you could make a case for him starting. You could also make a case for him being the guy who doesn't really play.
Yep.
Like, which is crazy. But in terms of fit in that, and I agree with you on your starting lineup. I've got the exact same thing. You've got Embiid, you've got LeBron, you got KD, you got Steph. Like, a defense first guy, just in terms of skill set, makes the most sense in that group.
Yep.
But I also have a hard time. Like, is Anthony Edwards going to take that well? Even is Devin Booker going to take that well if he's not right? I mean, you can make an argument for a lot of these guys to be in that starting five. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that gets managed and then how playing time ultimately shakes out. I have a feeling one of the three bigs won't play as much. AD, Embiid. I think Embiid is the clear starter, and then Bam Adebayo. And then I think, depending on where Kawhi is really at, he says his knee's good, but I do wonder if we see some of these nagging injuries ultimately make the playing time decision for the Team USA coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think Tyrese Halliburton is like the young guy, so I think there's a chance he could be the one who, like, he gets playing. He's like last on the list to get into games and the like there, because clearly Tatum's going to play off the bench. I think Tatum is kind of the like new successor to what Carmelo Anthony was for Team USA. Is like, just come off the bench, score a bunch of points, and go, right? Yeah. So I mean, the team's loaded. It's Steve Kerr is the one who's got to deal with all this and, deal with if anybody's unhappy. That one thing I will say with Drew Holiday, part of the reason why he's on the team, part of the reason why they talked about putting Derek White on the team as an injury replacement if necessary was the one thing Team USA has struggled with in international play more than anything is small, quick, fast guards. And that's the one thing Holiday can still give them more so than just about anybody else on this roster. But maybe they tell Anthony Edwards, like, hey, you talk about how all the time, like, you can be a lockdown defender if needed, go be one, right?
Yeah.
Go be one, because we certainly don't need your scoring, on this team right now. Go cause havoc. But man, I cannot wait to watch this team play. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards can channel now he's of the mindset of this is, I'm the alpha here. So maybe he's not going to want to do this, but the Kobe role where Kobe just said, you know what? I want to be the team's lockdown defender because that's what this team needs. Would be cool. I think Anthony Edwards is the most capable of the guys on this roster of taking on that role that wouldn't typically be his role in the NBA. But to look at this roster, he's the guy that I think is best suited to say, I'm going to be the lockdown defender. You guys handle scoring. This is what the team needs, and this is what I'm going to do. That comment, though, about him being the alpha suggests that's probably not what he's going to do. He's going to want to get buckets, but I think he's the most capable of saying, I'm going to be our wing stopper.
Yeah, it's something, too, as I was doing some Olympic prep this week, just to keep an eye on. Kevin Durant right now is tied with Carmelo Anthony. They each have 3 gold medals. So KD could get a 4th gold medal, which is starting to get into like unprecedented territory for team sports in the Olympics, because it's kind of rare guys even make that many Olympic appearances in a team sport, like that. So pretty cool thing for him as well, that he could be the all-time leader in gold medals by a month from now or so. Hopefully will be.
Let's hope so.
Better be, or I'm going to be an unhappy guy come the middle of August.
We'll be angry. All right. Well, I think that was a slimmed down version of the show, considering some of our live shows were going like an hour and a half, but we got through everything that we needed to talk about today. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow to break down anything else that goes down. Always the chance for trades to happen in the NBA. And of course, there's always something going on. So again, make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.